The Compromise of 1850 was a series of 5 bills that were intended to stave off sectional strife. It was passed during Millard Fillmore's presidency. Its goal was to deal with the spread of slavery territories such as California in order to keep northern and southern interests. Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. This act created the territories of Kansas and Nebraska, opening new lands for settlement, and had the effect of repelling the Missouri Compromise of 1820 by allowing white male settlers in those territories to determine through popular sovereignty whether they would allow slavery within each territory. Sanford. Dred Scott was a slave of an army surgeon, John Emerson. Scott had been taken from Missouri to posts in Illinois and what is now called Minnesota for several years in the 1830s, before returning to Missouri. The Missouri Compromise of 1820 had declared the area, including Minnesota, Freeport, Illinois. Freeport, Illinois, on August 27, 1858, in the second of the Lincoln-Douglas debates, Douglas made an effort to revive the doctrine of the popular sovereignty, which had been imperiled by the Dred Scott Manifesto. Was a document written in 1854 that described the rationale for the United States to purchase Cuba from Spain, while implying that the U.S. should declare war if Spain refused. Cuba's annexation had long been a goal for U.S. slaveholding expansionists, particularly as the U.S. set its sights southward following the administration of California to the Union as a free nation proclamation. This is an announcement made by President Lincoln during the Civil War on September 22, 1862, emancipating all black slaves in the states still engaged in rebellion against the Union, although implementation was strictly beyond Lincoln's powers. The Declaration turned the war into a crusade against slavery. It went into effect on January 1st, 1860. Is a speech by the U.S. President Abraham Lincoln, one of the best-known presidents in American history. It was delivered by Lincoln during the American Civil War on the afternoon of Thursday, November 19, 1863, at the Declaration of Soldiers National Cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. 13th Amendment. This amendment to the United States Constitution abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime. In Congress, it was passed by the Senate on April 8, 1864, and by the White House on January 31, 1865. This amendment to the United States Constitution was adopted on July 9, 1868, as one of the Reconstruction Amendments. The amendment addresses citizenship rights and equal protection of the laws, and was proposed to response to issues related to former slaves following the American Civil War. The amendment was bitterly contested practically by Southern states, which were forced to ratify it in order for them to regain representation in Congress. The 15th Amendment overturned the pre-existing statute prohibiting African American citizens of the United States from suffrage. Furthermore, any previous station of servitude or slavery undertaken by an individual was immaterial with regard to the right to vote. The first African American to participate in an election was Thomas Mundy Peterson. He participated in a school board election taking place in Perth Amboy, New Jersey. The vote took place on March 31st, 1870s. Black codes, which were designed to restrict freed blacks' activity and ensure their availability as a labor force now that slavery had been abolished. Radical Republicans. Radical Republicans were a fraction of American politicians within the Republican Party from about 1854 until the end of Reconstruction in 1877. They called themselves radicals and were opposed during the war by the moderate Republicans, by the conservative Republicans, and by pro-slavery Democratic Party. Sharecropping has a long history, and there are a wide range of different situations and types of agreements that have used a form of this system. Some are governed by tradition and other by law. Legal contract systems such as the Italian Mazzada. Debt bondage, also known as debt slavery, is a person's pledge of their labor or services as security for the repayment for a debt or other obligation. The service required to repay the debt may be undefined, and the service's duration may be undefined. Debt bondage can be passed on from generation to generation. Carpetbagger. Carpetbagger was a northerner who moved to the South after the American Civil War, especially during the Reconstruction era, in order to profit from the instability of a power vacuum that existed at the time. Hiram Rhode Reveals was a minister in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, a Republican politician, and a college administrator. Born free in North Carolina, he later lived and worked in Ohio, where he voted before the Civil War. He was elected as the first African American to serve in the United States.
The nadir is the direction pointing directly below a particular location. That is, it is one of two vertical directions at a specified location, orthogonal to a horizontal flat surface there. Since the concept of being below itself somewhat vague, scientists define the nadir in more rigorous terms.
Thank you, Cole. Gettysburg. Gettysburg is a borough in the county seat of Adams County in Pennsylvania. The Battle of Gettysburg and President Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address are named for this town. The town hosts visitors to the Gettysburg National Battlefield and the Gettysburg National Military Park. The Jim Crow Laws. The Jim Crow Laws were racial segregation state and local laws enacted after the Reconstruction period in the southern United States that continued to enforce until 1965. Mandate de jure racial segregation in all public facilities in southern United States starting in 1890, with a separate but equal status for African Americans. Conditions for African Americans were consequently inferior and underfunded compared to those provided for white Americans. This decision institutionalized a number of economic, educational, and social disadvantages.